What would be your advice in the modern times for photographers that are, so to say, struggling economically? Because, of course, it is, well, let's admit it, it is a very, very competitive profession. So, what would be your advice to them if they want to start right now, or if they started and they don't see any gains out of their effort?
Uh, this is such a tough question, and you've actually I get this a lot, and I've and it's really tough for me to answer this because I've not um, I've been very lucky. I had a lot of breaks. I got a big following on Instagram when there was probably only 1% as many people on Instagram as there are now. If I started my account today and posted the exact same stuff, like I would not have the audience that I have today. Like, and I've had it's networking. I've had people that I know, people that whatever. It's just like a million breaks. I've been so lucky. So it's so hard for me to answer and say what I would do if I was starting now. But I really have tried to put myself in those shoes and tried to take the lessons I've learned. And I mean, and even me, I've had all these breaks, and I kind of know what I'm doing, and you know, but it's hard even for me to year over year always make it work. Like it's just so much of it is like what comes through the door. Who's gonna email me or call me. So I've I'm working on a video on this subject where I'm trying to give advice to people that what I would do now. So I can um, I'm going to give you some of the answers, some of the ideas and things. So this might be a longer answer, and I might read a little more, but these are directly notes that I've been kind of compiling over a little bit of time to uh, to help people because this is like advice I really want to share. You want to make it easy for people to find you. If you're a wedding photographer, or a car photographer, or portrait photographer, the chances are you are working locally. So you are not competing with someone that has 100,000 followers in California or New York because that is not your local area. So keep that in mind if you're advertising or if you're engaging with communities or if you're designing your website, like aim locally, and it is a much smaller pool of people that you have to hit. You don't have to reach a million people. You just have to narrow that area and find the right people. So having I mean, I'm not saying this is a guaranteed method to success, but I think having a flyer in a coffee shop might be get more return than if you had 100,000 followers, but those are all in California or New York or somewhere else because those people aren't necessarily going to hire you. The, the the photographer that has that audience, um, they might get a lot of likes, but they're not necessarily going to have a real way to channel that towards work necessarily. And then also be a part of a community because we tend to think of other photographers as competitors, but really we're all kind of in this together. And if you know people that shoot and you want to, you might sub in for them if they're not available for something. If I'm a photographer and I know a great shooter and I'm traveling and someone needs me to do something, I will gladly recommend someone else because it makes me look good to have a good reference. And so being part of the community, being engaged, and this is always a challenge, but that is something that's really important. And if you are assisting on a big shoot for someone else, for a company or corporate work, like that's the kind of job, that's the place you want to be, where you might be able to get more jobs or meet more people. So being in the community is really helpful. Um, and then uh, and then knowing what you want to target. If you're shooting cars like me, um, I've enjoyed all the journalism work that I've done over the years, but it's never been the most lucrative work. Um, I'm That's maybe not the thing to chase. Like I know that like car dealerships do not care about good photography, but like shooting auctions for cars nowadays can pay really good money. Uh, and also like there are no staff photographer jobs really nowadays. Like you're not, there are, but you're not going to get a staff photographer job likely. probably. So chasing that. So just knowing what you want to look for is important, and if you can narrow that down and chase the right things, that's going to help you a lot.
Why cars? Are you drawn more on the machines in general, or is it some other reason? Did you do any other photography before this genre?
I took photography in college, and you shoot a lot of standard things, but well, I don't know what standard things are. I shot photography in college. We did some portraiture, we did some still life, we did some other things, but I've always loved cars. It's just been my hobbies are usually affiliated around cars. So the way that I kind of started was, you had asked this earlier, but so I'm going to kind of morph this into how I started. I was shooting my portfolio. I trained as a graphic designer, and that was my first 8 years professionally, was doing graphic design and advertising, and I felt that my portfolio could be, if I could, maybe my work was average to good, but if I could photograph the work in a really stunning and creative way, that it would look really good on my website. So I got really into that, doing lighting and doing flash with shooting my portfolio, poster designs and brochures, and anything I designed that I was proud of. I was trying to shoot it in a cool way. And I always thought that was more, at the time I thought that was a lot more compelling than just a JPEG of the work itself.
Mm-hmm.
Show a physical thing. If it's a poster, show it hanging. If it's a book, show it thick and have casting a shadow and everything. So that's how I got into lighting. And once I had the littlest bit of gear, the most basic flash and triggers, I was living in New York at the time, and I was shooting cars just that I would see on the street or something, or I would go, I had this, nice camera that I bought for photography for my portfolio, and I was shooting pictures of cars with it, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So I when I moved to Texas, I met someone who was starting up a publication, and they needed someone to cover cars, and it was going to be writing and doing the photos. And I said, I can write probably. I don't really have any samples, but I know cars, and I can take good pictures of them. And they're like, okay. And if they're like, you're hired for an insultingly low amount of money. It was a side freelance job, but I got to get access to cars and write about them and publish photos of them. And so I guess posting those pictures, which are all really embarrassing now, they are, they're kind of, that was kind of how people saw my work and what led to other gigs.
So definitely driving is one of your hobbies, right?
Yes.
What would
Yeah.
be other hobbies? We see some guitars in the background.
Yeah. I don't play those, unfortunately, but I don't want to get rid of them because I like them too much. But it's, I've kind of, as I talked about, I cars was a hobby and photography was a hobby, and I've kind of made that into my career. And so it still feels like a hobby to some extent, but I've also, I really, and this kind of goes into what inspires me is I really like, watching movies. And, I think when the pandemic happened, I was I was kind of kicking myself because I was like, we've got all this time, we're alone. It's like I could. I'm not alone. My wife, we live in the house together. So luckily, I had someone with me, but we're, not going out as much at all. So I was like, it would be great if I could read all these books on my shelves, or read all these books I've been meaning to get to, and I just never felt like it, and I was really kicking myself. It's like I wish I was reading more books, but I have been watching movies and just enjoying different genres and just seeing classic movies that I never saw before. And so that's been very rewarding, because I'll see things where I'm like, oh, I should do a credits like this in a video, or just do whatever. Just kind of having that vocabulary and experience. So I've kind of changed that in the last couple of years, where it's like there's just so many movies I want to watch from the past 70 years or 60 years, and it's been really enjoyable. So just seeing movies, I used to kind of stick to my own familiar genres or familiar movies and watch those, and I would think like, oh, if I watch this movie and I don't like it, that's like, I've wasted an evening. And now it's like I don't look at it that way. I'm like, well, now I have that experience. I probably don't need to see it again, but I've got that vocabulary now. I've got this understanding. I can check it off the list or something. So it's that's been an enjoyable hobby. So the one thing is that all my friends, everyone's like, oh, have you watched this show, or did you see this series on Netflix? And I'm like, no, I just don't really watch shows anymore.
Kevin, thank you so much for having this short conversation with me. Definitely, please, for the viewers, follow Kevin on the social media. His YouTube channel, Capture the Machine, and also your website, Kevin, if I'm not mistaken, capturethemachine.com, right?
That's right.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can go there and see his portfolio, and of course, like all his videos and subscribe to his channel. He has an amazing content that certainly you are going to benefit regardless of the genre of photography that you are in. So again, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for the kind words and for putting this together. And and thanks for asking me. It's been a lot of fun. These are really good questions. It kind of got me, thinking. It kind of makes your brain tick over experiences when you have to process some of the questions like this. So it was a very fun exercise, is what I'm saying. So I really appreciate it.